The City Transit Authority strictly enforces the end-of-service sweeping protocol. At exactly 2 o'clock in the morning, all operators on Line 4 must complete a physical check of every train car before moving the vehicles to the underground storage yard. This protocol exists to protect transit property. It also exists to protect the drivers. According to logbook files recovered from the sector yard, 3 separate operators failed to complete their sweeps during the winter of 1991. In all 3 cases, the tracking transponders registered that the trains were empty when they entered the storage tunnels. However, when maintenance crews opened the maintenance hatches the following morning, they found the seats damp. An internal warning was issued to all graveyard shift staff on March 1st. The memo stated, if you count the passengers on your final inbound run, and the number of faces in your rearview mirror does not match the turnstile metrics at the final terminal, do not look back into the train car. Keep your eyes fixed on the track ahead. The tunnel walls will reflect what is sitting behind your cabin door. This is David Reed, operator for Train Unit 401. It's my 5th consecutive night running the loops between Oakhaven Station and the terminus under the industrial district. The city is mostly asleep by the time I hit my final run. The train cars behind my cabin door are supposed to be empty. But tonight, the automated weight sensors on the dashboard are flickering. According to the digital interface, Car 3 is carrying an extra 240 pounds. It's an uneven weight distribution, shifting slightly from the left row of seats to the right row every time the train takes a sharp bend in the tunnel. I used the internal intercom system to announce the final stop. I told whoever was back there that they needed to exit the vehicle immediately. No one moved. Through the thick, scratch-resistant glass window of my cabin door, I can see the interior of Car 3. The lights inside the passenger cabin are dim, but the reflection of the glass shows a silhouette sitting on the long plastic bench near the emergency exit. It looks like a person wearing a heavy winter coat, staring straight down at their lap. The worrying thing isn't that they stayed on the train. The worrying thing is that when I checked the reflection in my side mirror, the passenger didn't have a shadow on the floor beneath them. The plastic floor was completely clean. The power grid inside the storage tunnel dropped to minimum backup levels at 315. The emergency brakes engaged automatically, locking the wheels to the rails with a screech that echoed through the entire concrete tube. 1. The radio is dead. I tried contacting the dispatch yard, but all I get is a rhythmic, wet scratching noise over the speaker. Scratch. Click. Scratch. I sat in my seat for 3 minutes, waiting for the line breakers to reset. The tunnel lights outside my side window went out, leaving the train in total darkness except for the green glow of my dashboard meters. Then, from the other side of my cabin door, the tapping began. Tap. 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 It wasn't a human hand knocking on the metal. It sounded sharper. Like a long fingernail or a piece of bone striking the plastic paneling. I turned around to look through the small observation window of the door. The passenger in the winter coat was no longer sitting down. The silhouette was standing right in the middle of the aisle, less than 2 feet from my glass pane. The coat was completely empty. The fabric was hanging loose, draped over a frame that was far too thin to be a human spine. Where the neck should have been, there was only a pale, gray stalk of flesh that extended upward toward the ceiling vents. And from the interior of the empty coat came a chorus of voices. They were whispering my name in perfect unison, using the voices of different people I had never met. The intercom speaker above my head crackled to life on its own. The audio track wasn't coming from dispatch. It was broadcasting the interior sounds of Car 3. I heard the sound of my own voice coming through the speaker. It was playing back the announcement I had made 10 minutes ago, please exit the vehicle immediately. And then, the automatic sliding doors between Car 2 and Car 3 began to open. Hiss. They opened slowly, struggling against the lack of air pressure in the tunnel. The empty coach didn't walk forward. It glided through the opening, the hem of the fabric dragging along the dirty floor with a wet, heavy rustle. Behind it, from the dark interior of Car 4, more shapes began to appear. They were filling the seats. Row by row, silhouettes were materializing out of the gray fog inside the train. Some were missing their limbs, others had their faces pressed tightly against the side windows, leaving wet streaks on the glass. They weren't looking at the tunnel. They were all staring directly at the operator's cabin door. The weight sensor on my dashboard began to climb rapidly. 400 pounds. 800 pounds. 2,000 pounds. The train structure began to groan under a weight it was never engineered to carry. The creature at the front raised its empty sleeve and pressed its lack of a face against my viewing window. The glass began to frost over, turning a crystalline white as a deep, unnatural cold seeped through the metal frame. Train Unit 401 was located by morning maintenance staff at 5:45 a.m. on March 14, 1992. The vehicle was found parked perfectly inside Storage Tunnel B. The primary engine was turned off, and the operator's cabin door was found locked from the inside. Operator David Reed was not found inside the vehicle. His uniform jacket, wallet, and transit keys were found neatly stacked on the driver's seat. The interior surfaces of all 4 passenger cars were found completely covered in a thin, microscopic layer of river silt and wet leaves. Line 4 subway systems have been permanently rerouted to bypass the industrial district's storage loops. This concludes Metro Transit Log number 09. If you are riding the final inbound subway train in your city tonight, and you notice the reflection in the window behind you remains stationary when the train accelerates, do not look at their face. They are waiting for you to complete the sweep. Following the disappearance of operator David Reed on March 14, 1992, the Transit Authority officially welded the steel security gates shut at the entrance of Storage Tunnel B. The Transit Board announced that the tunnel network was structurally unsound. They told the unions that the shifting ground above the tracks was causing the brick arches to collapse. They lied. The tracks weren't collapsing. The transit tracking computers were registering movement inside the sealed tunnel. Every night at precisely 3:15 in the morning, the exact timestamp when David Reed's engine died, the automated railyard sensors recorded a weight surge on track B4. The digital scales registered an instant, massive load of 74,000 pounds. That is the exact weight of a fully loaded 4-car transit train. On April 2, a senior systems engineer named Marcus Vance entered the control substation. He connected a portable tape recorder directly to the internal intercom lines of Storage Tunnel B, bypass wiring the security locks. He wanted to hear what was sitting on those tracks. This is Marcus Vance, senior systems engineer. If anyone from the main yard is listening to this archive, do not send a recovery crew down here. I'm sitting inside the electrical substation booth, less than 50 feet from the sealed iron gates of Tunnel B. The gates are still locked. The chain link padlocks haven't been touched. But the copper intercom wires leading through the brick wall are vibrating. I hooked my headphones up to the diagnostic receiver. The line should be completely dead because the power breakers for this entire sector were pulled 3 weeks ago. Instead, the line is hot. The audio track coming through my headset is an interior microphone feed from Train Unit 401, David Reed's missing train. The engine isn't running, but I can hear the internal ventilation fans humming. Whir. Whir. And beneath the fan noise, there is an announcement playing on an endless loop. It's David's voice. But it's wrong. The pitch is too high, and the spacing between his words is perfectly regular, like a machine trying to mimic human speech. The intercom voice says, "Next stop, Blackwood Valley. Please step away from the closing doors." The floor is no longer solid. I looked at the digital display on the substation wall. The automated turnstile counter for the abandoned station platform was spinning out of control. 100. 200. 500. The counter was registering hundreds of people passing through the exit gates, moving from the sealed tunnel upward into the city streets. But when I looked through the thick bulletproof glass of my booth, the platform was entirely empty. The air outside the glass was completely clear. No shadows. No footprints in the layer of gray dust on the concrete floor. Then, the clicking sound stopped. The turnstile wheel froze. The electronic counter on the wall glowed a steady, solid red number, 1974. That is the exact year the Miller family vanished from the valley nearby. A second later, the automated intercom system inside my booth clicked on. The sound didn't come from my headphones this time, it burst through the wall speakers, filling the small concrete room with a deafening layer of white noise. Through the static, I heard the sound of footsteps. Not human feet. It sounded like dozens of wet, empty winter coats dragging along the gravel ballast between the iron rails outside my door. Rustle. Drag. Rustle. Drag. They weren't exiting the tunnel anymore. They were surrounding the booth. I killed my flashlight. I dropped to the floor beneath the metal desk, pressing my back against the electrical junction box. Outside the booth window, the silhouette stopped moving. The moonlight couldn't reach this deep underground, but the glass pane was glowing with a faint, bioluminescent gray light. I raised my head just enough to look at the small rearview safety mirror mounted on the wall above the desk. In the reflection of the mirror, the booth wasn't empty. Sitting in the metal chair right beside me was a shape. It was wearing a heavy, stained transit worker uniform, but the fabric was draping over a hollow space. Where the chest should have been, the shirt had been torn open, revealing a thick gray tree root growing out of the collarbone. The root extended upward, boring directly into the ceiling ventilation duct. The figure slowly turned its neck toward the mirror. The face was gone. The skin was smooth, wet leather, stretched tightly over a bone structure that had too many jaws. It opened its mouth. A thin, gray vine wrapped in thorns slid out from its throat, dragging a wet, crumpled piece of paper across the metal desk. It was a page torn from a 1992 transit log. My brother's signature was at the bottom of the sheet. But his name had been neatly crossed out with deep, jagged teeth marks. The substation audio log cuts off at exactly 4:40 a.m. A transit security team breached the substation booth at 6 o'clock that morning. They found the heavy steel door bolted from the inside. Systems engineer Marcus Vance was not found on the premises. The interior of the control booth was found completely packed with 3 tons of wet river silt and dead oak roots that had broken through the concrete floor. Track B4 has been permanently filled with solid lead and concrete slurry. This concludes Metro Transit Log number 09, Part 2. If you are riding the transit lines in your city tonight, and the automated weight sensors on your train car begin to fluctuate while passing an abandoned platform, do not look at the empty seats. They are already counted. And they are waiting for the final sweep to end.